You're watching The Bat.
I'm Ed Zackery, Director of the Medina County Veterans Service Office. Welcome to Salute to Service, a show about Medina County and our veterans. What we hope to capture in this program are some of the many achievements, heroic deeds, and sacrifices of our past and present warriors from here in Medina County. We also hope to highlight the many accomplishments that they have continued to make as veterans right here in our community. Again, welcome to Salute to Service. Today I'm here with Jack Freeling and Bob Provost and Dave Hayes from the American Legion here in Brunswick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Now this is our first show and I thought it was only appropriate that we come out and talk about why we're doing this show, and you guys are kind of like the brainchild behind this. You and the man behind the cameras back there, and I won't mention his name, I'll let you go ahead and do that. But what's the intention of the show?
A while back, one of our members received a paper from somebody about I Am the Flag, and we do flag programs for fifth graders in the Brunswick and the Highland School District, and he said maybe we can integrate this into our program somehow. I eventually read it, and when I did, I told him, I said, Keith, I said, we got to do something more with this, because it was very nice. The author's unknown. So I told him, I said, Bat TV's always promoting on the sign at the square there that doing programs. I said, I'm going down and talk to somebody. Well, when I come to Bat TV, I met Ben Staunton, and I explained my idea to him and I would just basically read about the flag and have a shot of a flag flying in a sky background. And Ben took it and run with it. It come out very nice. So whenever he said it was done, he said, would your DVD's ready, you can pick it up any time. I come in, I asked him, I said, what do we owe Bat? He said, nothing. But you can do me a favor. And I said, what's that? And he said, I'd like to do a program about the veterans, what they did, why they went in, basically things like that. And he said, we'll meet on it. We'll have a meeting. I said, when you're ready. So we had a meeting on it, and him and I discussed. He said, you know, I was thinking if we get Ed Zackery involved, he says, you know, we could take this county-wide. He said,
I was wondering how I got dragged into this.
So he says, there is a lot of veterans in Medina County.
For sure.
And I said, there's a lot of veterans in Medina County that's not recognized. A lot of veterans belong to veterans organizations, the VFW American Legion and the DAV and the AMVETS. But I said, there's a lot of veterans out there that don't belong.
Right.
And I says, hopefully, if we can get this program going, that we can get some veterans to come out and be recognized.
And one of the goals we're trying to achieve here is not just to talk about, you know, there's a lot of historical stuff out there with our World War II veterans and our Korean veterans, but also to highlight on what you guys are doing today out there in the communities. I mean, I know Dave's part of the Color Guard and the Honor Guard down there at the Rittman Cemetery from Post 234 from the American Legion, and you guys participate in that quite a bit. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I'm the Sergeant at Arms with our Brunswick American Legion, and we do the private funerals. We go down to the National Cemetery every 6 weeks, but we don't just do funerals for veterans from our post. When we're called, we will go anywhere.
Right.
In fact, we did one in Bedford Heights last week, and most generally it's the funeral homes, the local ones, Carlson, Waite, Bauer, and Valley City. But we we're there for our veterans. It makes no difference whether they're a member or not.
Now, a lot of people ask me, they say, well, who are these guys that are out there, doing the honors at the cemetery? And to be honest, a lot of them think you're in the military. I have a lot of people, and I say, well, did you get a close look at those guys? Because they're not in the military anymore. They're our veterans from our organizations. And, the only thing the military provides is someone to fold the flag, usually 2 service members from whatever service that veteran was from. So you guys get out there and do the firing squad and, usually a veteran's prayer and everything else. And the families really appreciate that. And I think that's important to know that you're all volunteers, whether it's 20 below or over 100 degrees out there.
I was going to say that our weather down there can be, it can be either really hot or really cold.
Really cold. You guys are out there in all the weather, and that's great. Bob, you're an Army veteran, correct?
Yes, sir.
So me and you got a little bit in common. What do you guys do at like Post 234, the American Legion here in Brunswick, that makes you different, or even some comparisons to some other posts in the area?
I think one of the main things that we do is we do an awful lot trying to raise funds, and all the monies goes back to the community.
To the community.
One thing, I mean, we're a fairly large American Legion post without a post home.
Right.
Right now we consider Copper Top Golf Course our post home. One reason is because we have American Legion bingo on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
All the monies, if we have any monies that we actually turn a profit on it, every 3 months we try to turn over money to the food banks.
Okay.
Generally we try to do $500 through Bueller's, and in the past we did $500 through Giant Eagle. I'm also involved with the Gift of the Yanks program, which we really started to take off last year. Most people aren't even aware of what the Gift of the Yanks program is. 100% of the money from the Gift of the Yanks programs goes towards our hospitalized veterans at Christmas time. They help
now,
them.
Is that here in Brunswick or at Wade Park, the Veterans Home, or?
It'll go to any hospital in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
All the money is turned over to the state of American Legion Department of State of Ohio, and they handle all the funds. But 100% of that money goes towards hospitalized veterans. I've been involved in this. Well, last year was actually our first year in 234 where we got involved. I thought we had a terrific year. We raised over $2,000, which was, for the first year, I thought it was a great effort.
It is a great effort.
And
go ahead.
Looking forward to doing it again this year. We're going to be doing it Memorial Weekend at St. Ambrose again this year. It takes a lot of volunteers to give up their time on Memorial Weekend to work after the masses.
Talking about charity and raising money, there's a lot of people out there collecting money for veterans nowadays. There's a war going on. It's a great time to give money to help a vet. And I tell everybody, be very careful as to who you give your money to, because all organizations are not alike. There's the big 7 out there: the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America, AMVETS, Military Order Purple Heart. Those are all congressionally chartered organizations. And I tell people, if they're out collecting money, that money usually stays right in your community. So, like, the donations that you guys receive stays right here in Brunswick. Right. One of the American Legion or Veterans of Foreign War posts in Wadsworth, they collect money, that money stays in Wadsworth. So you're given to your local veterans. And I tell everybody, if you don't know who you're giving your money to, keep it in your pocket until you do your research, because you don't want to give money to someone where it's not going to be used where you think it's going to be used.
Just to add one thing, Ed, Bob had mentioned about the donations that collected at St. Ambrose Church. I'd also like to throw in there that Kelly's Cafe in Brunswick had our containers up there, and their customers were very generous in their donations to the Gifts for the Yanks.
And you guys are very active in Brunswick. I know the high school and the middle school, you got great programs during Memorial Day and Veterans Day. You get out and do a lot of stuff within the community, not unlike throughout the community. Medina is a great place to be a veteran. I tell people that all the time. It's not like this everywhere in the country. You go to just about every township in this county, and there are veterans events, parades, support for our vets, so it is a great place to be a vet.
If I can interject, I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of is, since I got involved with the color guard and your honor guard here, is when we go to the nursing homes, which we go on all the holidays, the Veterans
Right.
Days, to recognize the veterans that are in the nursing homes. Not only the veterans, but all the people that are,
Right.
that are in the nursing homes. And it's really humbling to be there, to be able to do something for these people that have a hard time doing anything for themselves.
I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, I was in a nursing home a couple of years ago, and one of the ladies had said, well, we got 12 veterans here. And as I spent some time there, I found her 8 more, and I told her, I said, I would bet that 90% of the women in here are probably widows of veterans because, you know, that World War II and Korea era is getting up there, and they're in the nursing home. So, you know, it's just that generation, they're starting to hit that age where there's a lot of them in our nursing homes. And I see a lot of events throughout the county at our nursing homes provided by gentlemen like you. So
And
that's
an
great.
awful lot of history in those nursing homes.
There sure is. And that brings us to why we wanted to really do this show, was to capture some of the history that's out there with our veterans, specifically our World War II and Korean veterans. We talked about bringing some new vets on here too, though, to see maybe some comparisons, huh?
Right?
I mean, they got a lot of stuff to say. Why don't we hear from you guys about your history in the military? Bob, we'll start out with you.
I was in during the very beginning of the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was in Germany from '63 to '65, and it was probably late in '64 first time I ever heard of Vietnam.
Whereabouts in Germany?
I was in outside of Nuremberg in Ansbach,
Okay,
Germany.
all
I
right.
was in a
Nice area.
I was in a Hawk missile outfit, surface-to-air missiles,
Mm-hmm.
and first time I ever heard about Vietnam is when we saw a piece of paper hanging on the bulletin board where they're looking for helicopter gunners.
Mm-hmm.
Helicopter gunners for where? Nobody ever heard of Vietnam. You know, you didn't hear too much about other places besides Europe at the
Right,
time because of the Cold War. Everything
Right.
was still kind of hot, you know. But I enjoyed my service time. There's 3 important things in my life that I remember from the service. One is the Cuban crisis, which was at the height of the
Probably
the
high
Cold
alert,
War.
high alert in Europe at that point, I would imagine.
Well, right. I was stationed in Fort Lewis, Washington at that time.
Okay.
And most people would think that anybody that was preparing for war would be going to Cuba, where in our instance, we got served cold weather gear, Mickey Mouse boots, snowshoes, parkas, special
So
sunglasses.
you were probably going up to the Bering Strait area.
Well, we weren't heading to Cuba, I know that.
Yeah, there you go.
And then the second experience in my service time was when I was on my way overseas to Europe. We had only been out of Boston Harbor for one day. We probably couldn't have been more than 100 miles out when the ship stopped dead in the water, and we finally went topside, and every kind of Navy vessel you could see. That's when the USS Thresher went down, when they lost the nuclear power sub Thresher, and of course nobody knew what happened to it or who did what. So that was a high stress time also. Next stress time to me was when President Kennedy got killed. Europe was on high alert at that time.
Right.
I wasn't in combat. We had stressful times though.
Right.
And like any serviceman will always say, I will never regret the time that I served.
Dave, you were in the Air Force.
Yes, sir. I went in 1959 right out of high school.
Hey, I got to interrupt you. Don't
Yes, sir.
call me sir.
Oh,
Okay, I work for a living. I was an NCO.
You were just an enlisted man, right?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Need that as a name. Folks didn't really have the money to send me to college, and I really wasn't college material. So I had hoped to go into the service. I enjoyed photography. Well, I ended up as an aircraft mechanic.
All right. Let's kind of switch.
I was I was stationed in England for 3 years. Really enjoyed it. The English weather was just about like they say. It was foggy, rainy, but made a lot of good friends. And kind of like Bob was saying, the only major thing while I was in probably was the Cuban Missile Crisis. What we did, we would rotate our planes and personnel to Tripoli, North Africa, when we
Right.
still had the base,
Right.
when Gaddafi wasn't what he was. and the pilots had to qualify. They used the desert as a gunnery range. And when the Cuban Missile Crisis came about, we packed up all our planes. The pilots came back to England, and they loaded us on a bunch of C-130s, and they had us back to England. So that really was the major thing while I was in England. Restationed back down to what used to be Lockbourne Air Force Base in Columbus, which is now Rickenbacker. And as Bob was saying, when President Kennedy was killed, right. They locked the base down. We couldn't get off. We couldn't make phone calls. And I don't recall how long the lockdown was for. At least a day or two before they let us off base.
That's the commander-in-chief there. You know, I mean, that's a big event in the country.
Exactly, exactly. But thoroughly enjoyed my time while I was in. I got to see, when I was in England, got to see a lot of countries that I'd probably never get to see if I had to pay for it.
Nice area, huh?
But yes. But yes.
I think it's important, you know, the Cuban Missile Crisis, we look at Cuba, but, you know, look at the history there. That affected the military worldwide. I mean, we were looking at, you know, almost World War III at that point in
Very
time.
close to it.
Yeah.
And as a young airman, again, as Bob said, I didn't know what Vietnam was.
And you don't know what's going on. You're focused on your job.
If I would have stayed in, I'm sure they sent, it was the old F-100. It was the first swept-wing supersonic plane. If they sent those on to Vietnam.
Okay.
And if I would have stayed in, I served about 4 years and 9 months. If I would have stayed in, I'm sure I would have been in Vietnam, and I may not be here now.
Any regrets about serving?
None at all.
Yeah.
None at all.
You very seldom will you hear a veteran that's got a regret about serving, no matter what he did.
Nope. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Truly honorable time. Jack, you are a Navy guy.
Yes.
On board, off board?
On board.
There you go. What kind of ships, Jack?
I took my basic training. I got out of that. I went to radio school. I was a radioman. I crow that I'm the last of the breed that knows the Morse code. Today it's all high-tech, different stuff. But I went aboard ship. I was in the amphibious Navy stationed out of Norfolk. I was on an AKA.
What's that?
As a attack cargo ship.
Okay.
We had LCMs up. The old movies, if you see where they bring the boats into the beach and the front drops down and the troops run out, that's amphibious Navy. I was aboard that for 3.5 years. They say, join the Navy, see the world. I got to see half of it.
The water part, right?
Right. Basic training in San Diego Radio School in Norfolk, and I was in the Atlantic Fleet the rest of the time, and made 2 trips to the Mediterranean, and really wasn't anything. The only thing was the Berlin crisis. When it come about, I had about 21 days to go to get out, and I was extended for 6 months.
There you go.
I was not a happy swabby.
Right. Not unlike today, we're extending soldiers.
I was ready to go home, but then,
Yep.
then they said different. The government said different. But anyhow, like Bob and Dave said, it was an honor, and I feel it was a great privilege to serve my country. And yes, I would do it again.
They might call you. You never know.
My wife said I'm too old.
You know, one of the things that comes out of this was, you know, we've all served our country, but you guys are still out there serving and doing stuff for your community. And
Right.
that's really something we want to highlight with this show, is what veterans are still doing. I just want to bring up, we talked about the cemetery and the honor guard and everything, and before the show we were discussing one of the important things that veterans need to know. Know where your discharge is. For some of you it's called a DD-214, for others it's just simply a discharge. Very important when you go you know, to get buried in a national cemetery or just to have a funeral. I tell people, take it to your funeral director if you know who that is. Ask them to keep it on file, or make sure a loved one, spouse, child, someone has a copy of it and knows where it's at. So when that time comes, there's not a problem of getting you those benefits, and you know, whether it's a headstone or a burial or something like that.
One thing to add, on the DD-214 or the discharge papers, in every county in Ohio, can be taken to the county recorder's office, be recorded, and you get the main copy back. The recorder's office has a copy there. If the family ever needs it, it's there.
Let someone know you recorded it, though. That's the problem, because Dad came home in 1953 and he recorded it somewhere, and no one knows that. He never told anyone.
And last day I got off the ship, the officer that signed my paper says, "This paper you will keep in a safe place the rest of your life," the DD-214. And I said, "Oh, yeah, right." I'll tell you what, it's a very, very important piece of paper.
All right, we're going to wrap up here. Any last comments from any of you? We'll start with Bob. Got anything real quick?
I think I belong, I'm a past commander from a different American Legion post in Parma, which was a much larger post. But I can tell you that this small post here in Brunswick, 234, are more active in the community than probably any post I've ever seen or ever heard of. I mean, these guys, it's never ending for them to help the community.
Great. Dave?
Well, I never, as I said before, I never regretted one day that I served. And along with Bob, I've been in since 2002 in the Legion, and never figured I'd get involved as I have. I was in 6 months, I believe, and Mr. Jerry Lemons had me as the finance officer.
Jerry's a great recruiter, isn't he?
My wife's my wife's my finance officer. I didn't know what the devil I was doing, but I stumbled around for a few years, and then I took over. Well, I came after Jack. He was our previous finance officer, and then when Johnny Rich was our, he ran the honor guard, and then when Johnny got sick, I was helping him, and then I took over. And it's a real privilege. It's not a job. It's we're here for our veterans.
It's an adventure.
I really enjoy it.
Jack, you wanted to mention real quick before we go about Veterans Week.
Yes, I say this on behalf of the American Legion, VFW, all veterans, that Veterans Week we look forward to. We want to thank the Brunswick School students for putting on their programs to recognize and celebrate veterans in our community, because it's a whole week of Veterans Week on Veterans Day week. It's a whole week of activities. My wife says, "I'll see you when you get home," because it's every day and it's all day. And I'll tell you what, the veterans really appreciate it, and we thank you.
I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with power in the world. Look up and see me.
I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I'm arrogant. I am proud.
When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer.
I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am saluted. I am loved. I am revered. I am respected. And I am feared.
I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. I was flown at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Shiloh, and Appomattox. I was there at San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, in the Aragon Forest, Anzio, Rome, and the beaches of Normandy, and Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Quezon, Saigon, and Vietnam know me. I was there.
I led my troops. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired. My soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible.
I have been soiled upon, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my country, and when it's by those whom I have served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong.
I have slipped the bonds of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours, but my finest hours are yet to come.
When I am torn into strips and used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the battlefield, when I am flown at half-mast to honor my soldier, or when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving parent at the grave of their fallen son or daughter, I am proud.
My name
is Old Glory.
Long may I live. Dear God in heaven,
long may I live.
This program was brought to you by the same men and women that also brought you your freedoms. Thank you for watching Salute to Service.
Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. At IAVA.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. IAVA.org. We've got your back.